I'll just make one example why all of these things are very urgent and urgent to understand. So there's a number of states, 8 states in the United States, that are issuing in the very near future digital driver's licenses. So Arizona, Connecticut, Georgia, Iowa, Kentucky, Maryland, Oklahoma, and Utah. They're all about to grant their particular citizens the right to store their driver's license in a digital form using the Apple enclave specifically. And so the reason why this is important to understand is it also then comes with particular facilities and functions, i.e. you see this TSA symbol on here. So the exchange mechanism, so the way that information from this digital driver's license will be shared is obviously encrypted, but then also there's only a particular form of information that gets passed on, because a part of the huge problem that we created is that we created these very simple documents like driver's license and so forth, where there's a wholesale connection of PII to every single transaction. And so the usual example I make for that, and that comes back to our earlier discussion about account-based systems. So in account-based systems based on the legacy technology, so based on database solutions, what happens is every time that you swipe your credit card or use your debit card or use any other form of transfer mechanism that involves your demand deposit account, there is a number of entities that get a wholesale stack of all your personal identifiable data. They get your first name, your last name, your address, and so forth. And if you think about it, if you did this particular transaction in cash, which if you look at your last 1,000 transaction, you probably could have done all of those in cash. It was just more convenient to not do them in cash. But because you use the digital medium that is account-based, all of that information now for every single transaction was shared on average with 5 entities. And so these 5 entities now have copies in some databases that you often don't even know about, that these copies exist. And so that's why from the past, people probably have heard about things like the Target hack or AT&T hack. So a lot of the data that was sitting there, people were utterly unaware basically that this data even existed. But then more importantly, this data was also shared. And then in Target's case, for example, was sold back to Facebook to then create more nuanced profiles. And we're going to talk about profiles in a little bit, but to come back to like what you need to realize is that if, when, and where, and this is imminent, we have these particular digitally issued government credentials, you have to be able from a technology perspective and an application developer's perspective, be able to integrate with those and deal with this data in a particular way that you don't do that legacy wholesale exchange of data anymore. And this knowledge is largely absent from almost every solution we looked at, probably close to 1,000 solutions over the past like 5 years in the matter of our fund investments. And this knowledge and this thinking is entirely absent. And there's another issue that I briefly mentioned is the fact that there's a lot of data exchange standards that exist. We were talking about the travel data exchange standard, that your solution also then still has to be backward compatible with, because otherwise there's no way for these vendors that are using these today to integrate with that, because as an externality, you might be trying to enter a country that you're arriving at and they send you right back because the metadata that was sent didn't include any necessary records that these entities on the other side needed, but you didn't even know that this existed to begin with, something we see on a regular basis.